Hey Moonbeams, it's me, Celia Marie 1243, the Spirit Guide Whisperer. I'm also your favorite spiritual mentor, tarot reader, psychic medium, all the things. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the underrated forms of spiritual protection. I always am talking about spiritual protection. It's part of my list of things I wish I would have known earlier on my spiritual journey. But, you know, a lot of us, we focus on, crystals for protection. We got our Florida water, and I have a video, if you guys haven't seen it already, a video about how to spiritually cleanse and spiritually protect yourself. I have 2 separate videos on those. But this is about those underrated forms of spiritual protection that you might not even see as spiritual protection. So pay attention to these. Notice if you kind of miss any of these, and pay attention to them so that you can stay protected, okay? I got my Starburst water. If you are brand new, welcome. Make sure you subscribe, like this video if this is helpful for you. And let's get started. So, our underrated forms of spiritual protection, I have 7 listed here. So, number 1 is going to be understanding your triggers / shadow work. So when it comes to spiritual protection, understanding your triggers is important because when you are in an argument with somebody, or even if you're just, living your day-to-day life and you are triggered, that sense, that energy that we get into when we are triggered puts us in a heightened state. And if you are not aware, if you are not in a place where you're able to recognize that trigger and be able to reframe whatever's going on, ground yourself in that moment. So grounding kind of plays a part in this too. You are leaving your energy open and susceptible. That's the word, right? I pronounce that right. Please tell me I pronounce that right. Susceptible. You know how sometimes you're talking and then you say a word, or sometimes you'll write something and you'll write a word or type a word and you're like, that's not how that sounds, or that's not how that's spelled. That's what just happened to me. I'm pretty sure susceptible is a word. It is. It sounded better. Okay. Susceptible. You're leaving your energy open. ADHD moment. Where my ADHD people at? Neurospicy. But you're leaving your energy susceptible if you do not understand your triggers, and you don't understand how to reframe and bring your mind back to, a good place. Because what happens when we get triggered is our mind is like transported somewhere else. It's transported back to the first time that something like that made us feel that way, or that incident happened. So being able to understand your triggers, know yourself really well, your shadow work, that will help you to protect yourself by understanding, calming yourself down in that moment if that's what you need, and not like popping off or something like that. Because when we're triggered, our actions, our words, they can go anywhere, and they can cause energy to come back towards us, not even just necessarily from people, but from the energy being reflected, right? We know that everything that we put out into the universe is reflected back to us in some way. And so not being aware of your triggers will be reflected back there, and it's going to stress you out, and it's going to make you feel sometimes crazy. You know what I'm saying? Let me know if you've ever experienced that. But that is a way of keeping yourself protected, is understanding your triggers, your trauma, your shadow work. Okay? Number 2, forgiveness. So forgiveness is really good for protection because kind of the same way as understanding your triggers is good to know, to protect yourself spiritually and energetically. Forgiveness is like, I don't want to say a band-aid. It's a healing thing. And a lot of us feel like forgiveness makes us like weak, or we feel like we have to like fully absolve people from what they've done in order to forgive them. And that's not necessarily true, because when you're still holding on to guilt, and this could even be self-forgiveness, okay? I talked about forgiveness on a couple of my podcast episodes. I talked about forgiveness and how it's like drinking poison, and also apology languages on my podcast too. If you guys haven't listened to the podcast yet, you're missing out. If you're on your spiritual journey, trying to figure things out, want some guidance from yours truly, Cosmosis or Whatever is the name of my podcast. It'll be linked. But yeah, forgiveness, when you are holding on to a grudge or something like that, it's kind of like you're drinking poison. It really is. And that leaves you open and susceptible again to kind of like being triggered by things that if you had forgiven either yourself or other people, that they wouldn't even affect your energy in the same way. So forgiveness is another one. Okay. Number 3, one of my personal favorites, or I should say one of my spirit guides' personal favorites, is shutting the hell up sometimes. Okay, it's my favorite because this is the one I probably need to do the most. Stop telling your business to everybody. That is a super underrated form of spiritual protection, energy protection, because we tell on ourselves all the time. We put our business out there. Not everybody is happy for you. I know that that might sound a little, like, oh, well, that's not very love and light. Listen, spiritual journey is not all about love and light. It's really not. It's really not. There's dark and light to everything, and that's just how things go. And you need to know, you need to be able to discern who you can say things around and who you can't, right? I feel like that is a message, or that's a lesson that I've had to learn on my spiritual journey, especially being a spiritual mentor, being somebody who was on like TikTok, and having so many people see my videos and stuff like that, and being on my live, and even being on YouTube, putting certain things that I'm doing out there in the public, it can cause the evil eye. It is not hard at all for people to send you the evil eye. All the evil eye really is somebody who is jealous of you, somebody who wants what you have, and they don't have to know you. That energy gets sent. And that might sound dramatic to people who don't really understand the way that works, but it really is that simple. And if you have multiple people out there sending you that energy, it can come in the form of like a spiritual attack, especially if it's like super, super deep jealousy or hatred that people are putting out there. So that's not to say, don't ever say anything about, your accomplishments and whatever, but just be aware of where in the process you are. So for example, I never show pictures of my spells. I'm a spiritual mentor, right? I think I've mentioned that like 5 million times, but it's my job. It's what I love to do. But love all my mentees. Where y'all at? Hi mentees, love you. But I do not show any of them or tell any of them about any spells that I'm doing while I'm doing them. I always make sure, if I'm doing a manifestation, if I'm doing a spell, I did like road opening spells or, abundance spells. I never tell people when I'm doing those things, even if they're my mentees, because you never know. Just because somebody's jealous of you or envious of you, it doesn't mean that they hate you, that they, don't want you to do well, right? It could just be that they are feeling incompetent. They don't feel like they're in the same place. And so in order to protect myself from any energy and not have to like always decipher, I always wait till I'm done with something to to put it out there in front of everybody, if that makes sense. So also just not telling your business in general. I feel like I got this message a lot when I was going live a whole lot on TikTok, and I'm starting to go live again on TikTok a lot, and my spirit guides have been reminding me like, okay, remember, shut the hell up sometimes, because you know, you can tell people things and they're just like, you might say things like where you live, or you know, if you have bad things going on even. And there could be even people who feed off of that. Like, oh yeah, like she's having relationship issues, or, you know, they can see a weak spot in something that you're doing. So number 3, what is that? Yeah, that's number 3. Shutting the hell up sometimes is an underrated form of spiritual protection. Okay, so if you are a blabbermouth, much like me, let's get it together. Let's step up our spiritual protection in 2024. And sometimes it'll happen in just like, you know, regular conversation. You know, sometimes you're saying something and like a truck will go by, right? Pay attention to those moments when things like that happen. Or if you just forget what you're thinking, you're like, wait, what was I about to say? Sometimes I'll do that. My spirit guides will be like, girl, stop talking. I'm like, oh. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, refusing to argue. Refusing to argue. And I guess that kind of goes into, like, it's kind of similar as shutting the hell up sometimes. Knowing just when to exit a conversation is a huge form of spiritual protection for a lot of different reasons. Because sometimes when you just continue to talk and talk and talk, for one, you're diminishing your energy. Our aura is literally this big protective bubble around us, and it can have holes in it. It can have tears, rips, things like that. And when somebody is, again, sending us negative energy, or even the things that we put out there can rip those holes in our aura. And so by you refusing to argue, you are kind of just, it's almost like a bandage. It's almost like a shield over yourself. Like, you know, I'm not going to do this. That doesn't mean you can't disagree with people. That doesn't mean, you know, you can't have discussions where, you know, you might not be on the same page. But arguing, especially when it comes to like yelling and screaming and cussing people out, all you are doing is unbalancing yourself. We did a class not that long ago on throat chakras, and I talked about how it's very underrated. Talking about a lot of underrated things here. But like, a lot of people don't know that, yeah, you can have an blocked throat chakra where you don't say anything at all. But if you're cussing people out and, you know, gossiping and stuff like that, that is an overactive throat chakra, and that's not good either. A lot of people only focus on, you know, your throat chakra being blocked or underactive, but we really want somewhere in the middle. That class is on my Patreon. But refusing to argue puts you in this, it's not like you're better than anybody or whatever, but it really does help to protect your energy from unnecessary drama. You don't need it. So refusing to argue, underrated form of spiritual protection. Okay, here's another really good one. Okay, we have 3 more. Not overindulging in alcohol and substances. This is a really important one that I think some spiritual people struggle with, especially those of you who love your weed or, you know, mushrooms and things like that, which, you know, I think in the spiritual community, it's very common. And so notice that I said not overindulging. It can be very easy to become addicted to things like that, because what plant medicine does, or, you know, alcohol or substances, what those things do is it helps to alter certain things in your brain chemistry. So yes, that opens you up to, you know, seeing things differently. But at the same time, our human selves get so addicted easily to that, because we're always craving it then, right? If, mushrooms or, weed or something like that gives you like this light feeling, it is so easy for you to crave it more and more and more. And then when you come down from your high and you're feeling this heaviness of being human, and in this body, and it's very heavy sometimes. You want to climb for it all the time, and you feel like, oh well, it's fine, like it's natural, if it's weed or mushrooms or whatever. But that also can leave you open and susceptible for psychosis. Okay. It can leave you open and susceptible, especially like alcohol. I try my best not to drink a whole lot of alcohol. I still drink every once in a while, but I have really cut back since I started my spiritual journey, just because, the altered state that you are in when you are under the influence of alcohol, especially in the situations that people drink alcohol in, and I know not everybody does. But if you're out in a club or something like that and you're just like drunk, you're not aware of your surroundings, like that can be very dangerous, not only just in general, but for your energy, because you don't know what entities are out there, especially in, dark places. At night, spirit energy is like rampant. You have to be very mindful about when you're drinking, or using plant medicine, who you're around when you're doing that as well, and how often and how much you're doing it. Okay, so that's something to think about. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but I needed to be the one to tell you again if you're hearing it again. But not overindulging in alcohol and substances is an underrated form of spiritual protection. Okay. Last two, listening when people tell on themselves. That's number 6. Listening when other people tell on themselves. I can't tell you how many times in my own journey, even, somebody has literally told me to my face something, and I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, no, girl. And I can think of 2 specific instances that's happened. So one time was with my twin flame. Don't get me started on that. One time was with my twin flame. When we first started talking, me and my twin flame, he was telling me, and we are not together. If you guys don't know the story, I have some story time things in there. Some of you guys witnessed it in 4K on on my TikTok live, but when it was going on. But what did he tell me? He told me, oh, I'm not good enough for you. I wonder why a girl like you would be with me and stuff like that. And if that is not the biggest freaking red flag that I've ever heard in life, he literally said it plainly to my face. Like, I think, obviously in that time I was in this place of like, oh no, like, don't say that. Like, I like you. I should have just took what that man said. I should have took his word and ran away, because, there was also an instance, and I feel like this is part of my spiritual journey, because that was a little bit before I really started getting into my spirituality. I really started to get into my, spiritual self. That's before I started reading tarot, before I started meeting my spirit guides. That happened before then. This next situation that I'm going to tell you happened while I was in the middle of my spiritual journey. It happened some years ago. But I feel like it was kind of a test of my intuition. And when I tell you, I low-key kind of failed, okay? It happens. Learning is a journey. Figuring out your intuition is a journey. If you guys need help on that journey, I can help you, because obviously, we're growing. These are things that are in the past that I want to make you guys aware of from my own situations. So there was this girl that I was dating. And I don't even want to say dating because we went on 2 dates. There was someone I was dating, and no, our first date. It was literally our first date. We went on 2 dates. The second one was terrible and crazy. And this that happened, what she said on the first date should have told me that. So on the first date, it was actually really cool. We were at like a restaurant doing our thing. Food was good, whatever. We go out into the parking lot and she's like, oh, I can't even remember the context of the actual conversation, but she said something and she was like, oh yeah, like, I'm very ominous. And I was like, wait, and I think she meant to say something else. And I was like, wait, what did you say? And she was like, oh, did I say ominous? I meant to say, and I think it was like one of those Freudian slip type of things, right? Because if you guys don't know what a Freudian slip is, a Freudian slip is when somebody like accidentally says something, but it's really just like their subconscious, right? So say somebody just like stole something. Yeah, like say somebody just stole something and they're like walking out of the store and like people don't even know that they stole the thing, right? And they're like, oh, have a nice day. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm still gonna come back later. Like, a Freudian slip. Like, I don't know if that was the best example of a Freudian slip. If somebody has a better example of a Freudian slip, drop it in the comments. But yeah, that's like an example of a Freudian slip. So it kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier. Not me losing my entire thought. Hello. I can't remember where I was going with that segue. Anyway, listening. Does anybody else have moments like this? Is it just me? I feel like it gets worse for me when I'm filming. Cause like, I don't know, I do get a little bit nervous sometimes when I'm filming. Anyway, but yeah, homegirl, let's go back to that. Homegirl was like, yeah, something about ominous. And I was like, and the second date kind of told it all because she was actually, I don't want to say she was a bad person, but she really was very weird. Her energy was super, super weird. She was one of those, I think, like nice ladies pretending to be nice. But really she was actually like very rude and condescending. And I feel like I could have been in danger in one of the situations I put myself in. And it's actually not really funny. I can laugh about it now to stop from crying, but yeah. So pay attention when people tell on themselves. When people say, oh, you're too good for me, or people say, oh, I'm a terrible friend, or whatever, is listen to what those people are saying, because they're not just saying it for no reason. Okay, stop giving so many people the benefit of the doubt. That kind of goes hand in hand with that one, because that is one that I've learned over and over on my journey too. Okay, not everybody deserves the benefit of the doubt. You're not a better person for giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. You're not, especially if they don't deserve it. Okay. And last but finally not least, it kind of ties into everything that we've been talking about, but listening to your intuition. Listening to your gut is an underrated form of spiritual protection. Your intuition is literally a gift. It's literally there to help you avoid situations that are not in alignment with you, right? So, and that could be very, very small. It might not seem like it in that moment, but your intuition will tell you, whether you want to be friends with this person or not, whether you should go on a second date with somebody who's talking about they're ominous or not. You know what I mean? Was it ominous or was it another word? It was whatever word she used, it was just like a creepy, weird word that was like giving psycho killer vibes. So listening to your gut, your intuition, Whether that's, go down this alley instead of this one, or, if you are, deciding to get this food instead of this food, maybe that'll save you from, being on the toilet for the next couple hours. Which, is that spiritual protection? I mean, I would think so. Spiritual protection is things that keeps you away from things that are not aligned with you. That doesn't mean everything bad. That means things are not aligned, which sometimes we have to go through bad things, rough things in order to learn lessons. I've learned that on my journey, but yeah, listening to your gut, your intuition when it tells you something. And here's the thing, listening to it. Notice I said listen, because I can't tell you how many people come to me. They're like, oh, I have an excellent sense of intuition. And their spirit guides whisper in my ear like, yeah, but they don't listen to it. Because you could get that really strong gut feeling, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And you do it anyway. Or you notice something, you're like, huh, that's really weird. And you're like, and you do it anyway. Okay, so listen to your intuition, listen to your gut. It is there for a reason. If you don't know how to tell your intuition from your ego, I have a podcast episode on that too. Check out the podcast, lots of good things. If any of these made you kind of go, ooh, I do that, I needed to hear this, like the video, let me know down in the comments. Let's chit chat a little bit, and I will catch you guys in the next one.